Hello everyone, today I'm going to speak about the legal and political environments in international business. What we will learn in this chapter, learning objectives are to describe the major types of legal system confronting international businesses and explain how domestic laws affect the ability of firms to conduct international business and explain how firms can protect themselves from a political risk. Now, first of all, let's learn about the differences in legal systems. There are some differences in legal systems depending on countries, and there are four types of the legal system: common law, civil law, religious law, and bureaucratic law. Now that let's learn that what they mean. First of all, common law. What is common law? The common law that they based on some individual cases through history. There is not any codification, not detailed listings that what is permissible, what is not permissible. They just that make the judge that make the decision, just that based on this through the individual cases, the history. And especially that in which that countries that it is that exist, that United Kingdom and its colonies like the US, Canada, Australia, and etc. Now that let's explain that what is civil law. The civil law is based on the codification and detailed listing that what is permissible, what is not permissible. It is most known the legal system in the world. Most countries that use this legal system. In civil law, when the judge make the decision, they based on the codification that developed by lawyers. And the next one, religious law. In religious law, that based on the officially established rules governing the faith and practice of a particular religion. That which countries implement that these legal system, these countries are called theocracy. So that their legal system is based on some particular religion. For example, Iran Islamic Republic, that religion is Islam, and their legal system there is that religious law, and they based on the Islam. And the next one, bureaucratic law. What is bureaucratic law? In which countries that there is bureaucratic law, especially in communist countries and in dictatorships, the legal system described as bureaucratic law. What is bureaucratic law? It means that there is the one person and he that can make the decision that about some cases. He or she, they do not based on any codification or not any similar cases. They just they can make the decision by themselves, and they make their own rules. Especially in communist countries and in dictatorships, that there is this legal system, and it is unpredictable. It is unexpected because as we said before, that they do not know, that they do not base that on anything, and it is just their own decision. And now that we will learn about the sanctions, embargoes, export control of dual-use products, and extraterritoriality. Actually, the sanction and embargo, especially sanctions, that in news that approximately every day that we hear about that one country that made the sanctions, especially we hear about the Iran, that US that makes some sanctions. But what is sanctions, guys? Sanction is that one country attempt that induce a second country imposing some sanctions some commerce. For example, it can be about the high technology, that importing high technology, or that some special fields. That what they do, they make the restrictions against the country, against some commerce with the country. It is called sanction. But what about embargo? Embargo is the comprehensive sanction against the country, that other country. The one country makes that about all commerce, that they make that against all commerce, that make the restrictions, all commerce with the country. It is called embargo. Embargo, that occasionally we can see that embargo. Why that actually they use sanction and embargo, especially for some political issues that they make it. For example, in history that there was the case about the embargo in India in 1990s. They made the embargo against Nepal. And the difference here that an embargo, it is about the all commerce, but sanction, it is the special, not all commerce, the special commerce. There's some special fields about maybe high technology or that about some that specific industry and etc. And the next one, guys, dual use products. There are some products that we can use it for that civil purposes and for military purposes at the same time too. And which products that can be used in military that feels that it is that they are called that dual use products. And some countries makes that restrictions for that importing or exporting that for such kind of the products because of that, because they can be used for military purposes too. That example about it, for example, drones. We can use it in civil, for civil purposes and for military purposes too, helicopter and etc. And the next one, guys, it is extraterritoriality. What's extraterritoriality? When the country, that home country, attempts that to govern, that to conduct that the access of the foreign that companies that also outside of their borders, that home country attempts that to that manage the access of the company that in host country. It is called extraterritoriality. And now that we're going to learn about that nationalization, expropriation, confiscation, privatization, and repatriation. Now that let's explain each of them. What is nationalization? Nationalization is when the government takes the possession of assets of foreign company. It is called nationalization. There is two that process. If they, for taking that dispossession of these assets, if they make that pay compensation for that companies that lose their assets, it is called expropriation. But if they do not pay any compensation, it is called confiscation. Yes, guys, it is that it is the dangerous, of course, for it is dangerous to threat for that international company. That also that in expropriation they that pay compensation instead of that they're losing their assets, but still they that can't that make that profit, future profit. That is why yes, it is threat for them. But for confiscation, of course, that it is that great threat because that they do not that get any compensation because of the losing their assets. And what about, guys, privatization? Privatization, it is an opposite process of nationalization. That in nationalization, the government that takes the possession of assets of the country's private sector. Guys, I want to say that it is not just about the, I say that foreign company, it is not just about the foreign companies. It can be that in local firms too. But why I say it? Because our that subject is international business. That is why that I give the example about just that international companies. And the next what we said in privatization, actually, it is the opposite process of nationalization, so that it is the conversion of state-owned property to privately owned property, and this process is called privatization. But that instead, that opposite of the nationalization, it creates the opportunities for multinational companies. And the next one, guys, repatriation. First of all, I want to explain that what is repatriate. Repatriate, it is to return to their home countries. It is repatriate. And there are some countries that they make that restrictions for that companies, multinational companies, for that to return their profits to their home country. And it is called repatriation. Host country actually make the restrictions. It is about it is called repatriation. And now that I'm going to speak about their impacts of multinational companies on host countries, and we learned about that, what kind of the factors that affecting multinational companies that in international business. But the multinational companies have the impacts on that host countries too. Now that let's learn about it, what kind of the impacts are there of multinational companies on the host countries. Actually, I explained it. What is host country? That in which country that they implement their business, it is called host country. And there is the economic, political, and cultural impacts. And there is the positive effects and negative effects. For example, about the positive effects of economic impact of multinational companies. If they make that employment, and if when they hire the employees from the citizen, among the citizen of these host countries, yes, it is that good that effect, that this is positive effect about the economic factors. But for example, about the competition that in local that market, we can see that negative sides of it, especially that which countries that makes that implement the protectionism for their local firms. Yes, because of the yes, they have the great capacities and they are the more practiced and they have the standards and that their system and their product can be that more qualified than the local that products. That is why that it can be that is threat for local firms, and it is a negative effect. And what about the guys political and cultural? We know that multinational companies, that especially great multinational companies, has a power and they can affect some political stations too. For example, recently we actually saw that this process in Azerbaijan, and about the cultural guys. Every new product that it brings that new culture with them, especially it is about the multinational company, and it means there is not that special that culture, special culture that about the nations, the traditions, and they knew the new culture. They bring new cultural values with them, and as we said before, culture is adaptive process. It means that people can adopt that new cultural values. That is why that they multinational companies actually that can change them some cultural values, and these that cultural impacts can be positive and can be negative effects that depending on the countries and depending on your understanding cultural values. And now that I want to speak about the other types of the political risk, that ownership risk, operating risk, and transfer risk. Now that let's explain each of them. First of all, ownership risk. As we said before now that about the nationalization, what we said that the government at times actually that they takes the possession of assets and they can make that they pay the compensation for it. It is expropriation. Maybe that they do not pay any compensation. It is confiscation, but still it is ownership risk because of as a result, the companies, they will lose their assets, or maybe that they will lose their future profit. And for confiscation, actually, the ownership risk is, of course, that it is greater than expropriation. And the next one, guys, operating risk, that it is about the ongoing operations that of firms, and maybe that it can be that about the safety of employees, and they are threatened that through some changes in law or some tax codes and etc. It is about the operating risk. And what about the transfer risk? When the government interfere with the firm's ability to transfer their shift funds into and out of the country, it is called the transfer risk. That when the government interferes this process. And other types of the political risk can be the macro political risk and micro political risk. If this risk affects that all firms in the country, it is called macro political risk. But if that political risk, it covers that it affects just that some specific industry, some specific firm, it is called micro political risk. And now, guys, in this table, you can see that the impact that the types of that we learned about the political risk or some legal system and etc. And now that what is the impact of them? That in this table, actually, I emphasize that when I explain each of them. Now that in this table, you can see it that better. Now that, guys, the type the expropriation, what we say the impact on the firm, it can be loss of future profits, but confiscation actually it is the greater impact because they do not just lose their future profits, that at the same time that they lose their their assets too. And the next one, guys, campaigns against that foreign goods, and they can cause the loss of the sales. For example, now we saw that we actually have seen in Azerbaijan is that an increased cost of public relations effort to improve public image. And the next one, mandatory labor benefits legislation, that actually when I explained the operating risk, I emphasized that it is about the safety of employees, and it can increase the operating costs. And for companies, it is risk because such such kind of the changes in labor law, they can cause the increasing that operating costs. And the next one, it is the kidnapping, terrorism, or the some that may be a war, that it is that, of course, that the affections of it is the greater, it is the disrupted production, increased security costs, and increased managerial costs, and of course a lower productivity, that you see the civil war, that it is that they call impact of it. It is like that when I said that kidnapping too, and losing sales, the disruption of production, increased security costs again, because of it, that you now that you have to provide the security more than the before. And what about inflation, guys? And as I said before, guys, it is about the international business. That is why I just emphasize that international, that businesses and international effects of it. And the next one, repatriation. What we said, that repatriation, it is that the host country, that it interferes, that actually they make the restriction for the foreign, the multinational companies, foreign that companies that that take their profit to their home country. And currency devaluation, that approximately, yes, it was 4 years ago in Azerbaijan, actually we saw it, there was this great impact, that is why that we have faced with this practice, and that is why we can understand better. Of course, that we do not speak about that impact about it, or that the impact of their own local firms. We speak about the multinational companies. And for repatriation, actually, if there is the changes in currency, of course that, yes, there is that threat for them. And increased taxation, it is the lower after-tax profits, and if there is that increase, that some increasing in taxes, or there is a changes in taxation code, yes, that it impact that lower after-tax profits. And now that we will learn that about that political risk assessment, actually we learned that some that legal systems, and that some that political risk. Now that there is a question, there is a democracy or dictatorship, free market or government control, public or private sector customers, stability of the existing government. Yes, we can say that this, of course, democracy is better, but it is depending on the situation that which one is better, or stability that existing government or not. Actually, that most of that multinational companies, they prefer to stability. It doesn't matter in which sphere, in political sphere, in economic sphere, especially it is about when the capital flow, that you can see that they prefer stability in the country. And there is the negative side and positive side, and some that we think that, yes, of course, the dictatorship is not good, that they hesitate that if there is the dictatorship, but it is not always like that. It depends on the field, the situation, and etc. Okay, guys, it is the end of our lesson. See you later.